Welcome back, everyone. Today we're going to be shedding light on the ample reasons as to why your employer is eager to fire you. So, what are some of the myriad of reasons as to why your employer is eager to fire you? Without further ado, without further delay, allow me to demystify that answer to that inquiry right here, right now. Lamentably, much to my dismay, much to my consternation, much to my distress, much to my grief, and much to my agony, employers view their employees as disposable, expendable, exploitable capital livestock to be harvested for profiteering purposes. They view them as labor cost liabilities. Unfortunately, they often do not give an iota about the well-being of their employees. It is tragic, but it is what it is. Society is not structured to prioritize the well-being of human beings. So, an employer is adamant about firing you because it would allow them to minimize their labor costs. They view you as a labor cost liability if you are their employee. They do not view you as an asset. They do not view you as a human being. You are a metaphorical cog in the wheel that allows their business to stay afloat and generate substantial profits. Nonetheless, your achievements are typically unheralded if you are an indentured servant to an employer. Most real private sector jobs based on voluntary demand are often deemed to be highly time-consuming, dreadful, dead-end, dispiriting, agonizing, debilitating, brutally wretched, ineffably agonizing, egregiously abysmal jobs that do not pay anywhere close to even 1/4 of a subsistence wage for affording the utmost lowest level basic needs that are relegated to the utmost lowest level tier of Maslow's hierarchy of needs pyramid. In other words, even if you were to work for a real private sector employer full-time, you will still not be able to afford to attain your utmost lowest level basic needs, such as housing needs. Out of sheer and utter desperation, employees acquiesce to working these real private sector jobs based on voluntary demand just so that they can have some semblance of money to be able to buy some food products so that they do not perish from starvation. So, beyond the aforementioned reason of the employer being keen on minimizing their labor costs, why are they eager to fire you? Well, they prefer to displace you with robots, automated processes, algorithms, machines, and of course, an artificial intelligence. Your job is a set of tasks, and if it can be replicated, if it can be emulated by a robot, then they're more than likely going to be amenable to ushering in robots into the workforce so that they can truly minimize their labor costs. Also, robots, algorithms, automated processes, and machines, they can work ceaselessly. They do not need to take breaks. And humans cannot compete on par with robots. Robots can complete tasks flawlessly. So, you put yourself in a precarious position to be dependent on an employer for revenue. It not only provides you with temporary fleeting, ephemeral, perishable short-term relief, but it also comes at a covert cost. When you work a real private sector job based on voluntary demand for an employer, you are borrowing equity out of your life, time, happiness, dignity, health, and future wealth just for a pittance of a non-subsistence wage. There is no payoff on the back end when you work a job for a real private sector employer. There's no pension, there's typically no benefits, and there's typically no 401k. Companies exist to maximize their profits, not to prioritize your well-being, and the interests of the employee and employer are always diametrically opposed to one another. They are the polar opposite of one another. So, what are other reasons as to why he may be eager to fire you? Well, an employer may be able to, let me rephrase that. An employer may be eager to fire you on the basis that a new candidate would be able to outperform you. An employer may be eager to fire you on the basis that another candidate would be able to work longer hours at the company than you are able to. An employer may be eager to fire you since another candidate may be more amenable to working off the clock than you are willing to do so. An employer may be eager to fire you on the basis that another candidate may be willing to skip their paid breaks far more often than you are willing to do so. An employer may be eager to fire you on the basis that another candidate may be willing to work during their unpaid lunch break far more often than you are willing to do so. An employer may be eager to fire you on the basis that another candidate may be willing to cover coworker shifts if they call off at the last minute, far more so than you are willing to do so. An employer may be eager to fire you on the basis that another candidate may volunteer far more frequently to take on the utmost grueling, cumbersome, challenging tasks far more frequently than you are voluntarily willing to do so. An employer may be eager to fire you on the basis that another candidate is less apt to socialize than you are. When you socialize at work, it can undermine your productivity level and invoke the wrath of an employer, metaphorically speaking. They get irate and livid when you socialize because It's not conducive to maximizing your productivity. However, you are a human being. You're not an android. You're not a robot. You're not a machine. You're not an artificial intelligence. If you want to socialize for 30 seconds to 2 minutes every now and then, they should make a dispensation to allow you to socialize. They should render it permissible to do so. It helps you maintain mental acuity if you can stimulate your mind once in a while. A job is typically repetitious and monotonous and doesn't provide you with any semblance of mental stimuli. At least an employee job does not. So, the primary reason as to why your employer may be eager to fire you is because they believe that they can find another candidate who's willing to work longer hours, who is possibly capable of outperforming you, and who's willing to work during unpaid lunch breaks, work off the clock, and even work during paid breaks. They also want a candidate who is willing to work the maximum amount of hours and always cover for their coworkers anytime someone calls off to work their shift at the last minute. So, even if you are hyper-productive, even if you are a top performer at your job, that does not denote that you'll be able to retain it for years on end. You can get laid off, furloughed, or fired on a whim for any reason or no reason. You're at the mercy of your employer, and your revenue should never be tethered to your time. It's an incredibly inefficacious way to generate revenue. You do not want your income to be capped nor fettered. You want your earnings potential to be limitless, unlimited, and unfettered, and uncapped, and unbound. You do not want a measly, infinitesimal, non-subsistence minimum wage to dictate the course of your life. You always want to be able to thrust your life into a forward movement trajectory and make exponential progress in life towards thrusting your life into a forward movement trajectory. You want to be able to reach your overarching goals and reach your higher aspirations and manifest your ambitious, lofty, grandiose, overarching visions into reality. You want to be able to actualize your latent potential and manifest a prosperous, robust, auspicious, abundant, blissful future for yourself into reality. So, do not despair. Do not wallow in agony. Just understand that you are capable of doing far more than you realize, and that even if you are laid off, furloughed, or fired, it can be the stepping stone for allowing you to become profoundly successful as an entrepreneur if you decide to change the trajectory of your life. However, if you want to become profoundly successful as an entrepreneur, there's no guarantee. You are at the mercy of your target market. Your success is predicated upon whether or not your target market consumes your content and procures your product offerings or service offerings. However, it can be far more lucrative to be profoundly successful as an entrepreneur than it can be to be hyper-productive as an employee who works a highly time-consuming, dead-end, dispiriting, minimum wage, agonizing, brutally wretched, ineffably dreadful, egregiously abysmal, unfulfilling, meaningless job for an employer who does not give an iota about their well-being nor give an iota about whether or not they can make the minimum payments on their bills. Whether or not you can have a prosperous future is not so much as even a marginal concern to them. It is completely apathetic, but it is what it is. Your sacrifices to them for tens of thousands of hours mean nothing to them. They are ungrateful. I hope that you found this video to be insightful and enthralling. This is not the case with all employers, but lamentably with most real private sector employers, this is the situation, unfortunately. It is almost unbearable to dwell on. Once again, I hope that you found this video to be captivating, riveting, mesmerizing, enthralling, engrossing, insightful, and of course, informative. Have a blissful day. Goodbye.